Good afternoon. This is Math with Mr. Samuels. I'm posting this video for you guys so that you guys can get some help with two-step equations. Now, this video is just for assistance so that you can watch some examples, watch some practice problems at home, and hopefully help you understand how to solve one and two-step equations. So let's go ahead and do a couple of examples. I did a few of these examples in class. Let's go ahead and do this. We go ahead and do this one right here. So the main thing you guys have to remember when solving equations is you have to remember that basically we're trying to undo. We're trying to undo the operation and we're trying to isolate the variable. So one thing you could do at the beginning of every problem is you could basically circle what the variable is. You could circle what the variable is. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to circle what the variable is just to identify that this is the variable. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to solve this equation. But remember, the way that we solve equations is by undoing. The way that we solve equations is by undoing. So let me show you exactly what I mean. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to tee it up first. Okay, we always like to start with the tee it up so that we can make sure that we're keeping the same steps. So we have to undo the operation. What we see on the left side, what's going on is we have our 8m is 11 is being subtracted from 8m. So we don't want this 11 over here. We want to move it to the other side. We want to get rid of it, actually. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the opposite of subtraction, or the inverse of subtraction, which is add 11 to both sides. And the golden rule in algebra is what we do to one side, we have to do to the other. So now I have negative 11 plus 11, where we should know that those two are opposites. So the answer is going to be 0. And we also have to bring down what these two cross out, and we have to bring down what's left over, which is 8m. So now we have 8m equals 0, and we still do the same steps. 8m really means multiplication, really means 8 times m. So we're going to do the opposite, which is divide both sides by 8. And when we divide both sides by 8, we end up getting that m equals 0, okay? Because right now we see 8 cannot go into 0 any number of times, so that's going to be 0, okay? Keeping it moving, let's do another example. Let's see. Let's do number 7. Do one more example. We'll do number 7. So once again, we're still doing the same thing. We need to first and foremost tee it up. After we tee it up, we see that this is our variable here. Okay? We want to get that by itself. So the thing that's on the same side as the variable is this 19. Well, we want to get rid of that 19. The only way to get rid of that 19 is by doing the inverse operation, or the opposite. So right now we have a positive 19. So we're going to subtract 19. And the golden rule in algebra is what we do to one side, we have to do to the other. Okay. So now we know that these two are going to cancel out. That's exactly what we want. So we have left on this side negative x. Okay. Next, what we have to do is we have to subtract 19 from this side. So let's go ahead and do our borrow. We get 2. This is 10. And 10 minus 9 is 1. And 2 minus 1 is 1. So we get negative x equals 11. Now, what I don't want you guys to do is I don't want you guys to forget about this negative 1 out front, okay? We want to make sure that we get the variable by itself. Right now, the variable is technically not by itself or isolated because there's a negative 1 out front. So we need to get rid of this negative 1. Right now, that's negative 1 times x, negative 1 times x. So we're going to do the opposite, which is divide both sides by negative 1, okay? And we will see that our final answer ends up being a positive divided by a negative is always a negative, and we get x equals negative 11. Let's keep it rolling, okay? We have some other type of two-step equations as well, okay? Sometimes we might have a fraction, and we have a fraction. Let's see. Let's do another one. Sometimes our equations might look like this, okay? And when they do, don't fear. Okay, it's still the exact same process. We have to do the opposite. Now, if these were one-step equations, let me show you an example. Let's see. Let's say if we had x over 6 equals 12. Well, we know that fractions are the same as division problems. So we would do the opposite, which is multiply both sides by 6. And what the golden rule is, what we do to one side, we do to the other. So with that being said, let me go ahead and erase this. Well, I'll leave it up for now. With that being said, we're still going to do the exact same thing. We have to undo the multiplication first when our equations look like this. So right now we have x minus 1 divided by 6. X minus 1 divided by 6. So we have to get rid of this 6 the same way we get rid of this 6 over here. And we do that by multiplying both sides by 6. And when we multiply both sides by 6, we get 2 times 6 is 12. Sorry. And we have left over x minus 1. So now we need to locate our variables right here. And what's being done to the variable? We're subtracting 1 from it. So we need to do the opposite, which is add 1 to get rid of this. Okay? And when we add 1, we end up finding that our final answer is x equals 13. Now, one thing I don't want you guys to forget about, is I don't want you to forget to check your answer at the end. That's exactly what I'm going to do over here. I'm going to substitute in this 13 for x and make sure I get the right answer. Make sure I get a true statement at the end. So 13 minus 1 over 6 and equals 2. Should equal 2. Let's see. 13 minus 1, if we're following our order of operations, 13 minus 1 is 12. And 12 over 6 fractions are the same as division problems. So that should equal 2. And 2 does equal 2. So I know I'm correct. Let's do one last example, and then we're going to keep it rolling. Okay? Let's do number 18. So number 18, we have p plus 20 divided by 7 equals negative 4. So first thing I'm going to do, always what I'm going to do is tee it up. So now to get rid of this 7 dividing by 7, I need to multiply. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay? Opposite of division is multiplication. So now, negative 4 times 7 is going to be negative 28. And we have our p plus 20 left over. So now we have to get rid of this 20. Okay, we identify our variable. We have to get rid of this 20 right here that's on the same side. 20 is being added to the variable. So what we have to do is do the opposite of addition, which is subtraction. Okay, and we have same sign, so we're going to add the numbers and keep the sign. So it's going to be negative 48. And we bring down our p, which is left over. So p equals negative 48. Okay, but once again, we're not done. We have to make sure we check our answer. So when we check our answers, we get negative. Let me erase that. That's incorrect. We get negative 48 plus 20 over 7, and that should equal negative 4 as an answer. Well, let's see. Negative 48 plus 20 will be negative 28. And negative 28 divided by 7, negative divided by positive always equals a negative. And we end up with a final answer of negative 4 equals negative 4, a true statement, so we know that we're correct. So once again, for homework, you guys are going to practice all the rest of these practice problems if you have already done so. We'll go over it in class. This is Math with Mr. Samuels. Have a wonderful day.